When he says he's gigging, he's gigging.
This is his primary gig. He just shows up here every now and then for.
Does your bumper sticker say my other car is a Bender?
It's, you know,
Okay, so I've been playing guitar since like 2003. I started in high school. My mom thought I was going to kill myself skateboarding, so she bought me a guitar and put me in guitar lessons. A lot of my friends had guitars and stuff, you know, they were learning on their own. I started taking lessons and I got ahead really quickly, got really into it, and took lessons for about 4 years. I've been playing guitar since then, but it's just one of my hobbies, and I have several hobbies, so sometimes I neglect it, so I'm not going to say that I am a good guitar player. I want to be good again. I feel like I was good at one time when I played all the time and stuff, but that's my goal. So actually, part of the reason I did this today was to test myself and make myself play in front of people, which is a little scary, a little nervous, but...
Have you ever played as Captain America?
No. But so when I started taking lessons, like one of the first things I learned was this song called "Walk Don't Run" by the Ventures. It's like this 1960s little thing. It's just super simple. It just goes like... Really simple, just power chords, that's what we call those. Right here, it's one of the most basic things you can do on a guitar. You hold one note, you play the fifth above that note on the second string, and you get this chunky sound. A lot of music is made that way. So when I first started, you don't start like... You start somewhere like... Work your way up. You add in the second note, a little faster, the rhythm. Some palm muting, adding my palm to the back of the string to mute some of the strings to get it a more chunky sound. It kind of mutes it a little bit. We call that palm muting. Very, very common technique. You'll see very, very common in like metal and heavy music where it's real chunky sounding, Metallica, Slayer, all that stuff. And so, so that's like the first song I ever learned, and just there's a little part that goes. And it just starts over. The second thing I learned is this little blues ditty. My instructor, he played with Stevie Ray Vaughan back in the 1980s. He's a local Fort Worth musician and kind of grew up in the Fort Worth blues scene. His name is Paul Bowl. Probably never heard of him. I'd never heard of him, but really cool guy. Took lessons from him. He was a firm believer that if you're going to learn how to play guitar, you got to learn the roots of the guitar, which of course are rooted in blues. And all rock and roll music really is rooted from the blues. So, just as an example, you may have heard of something called the 12-bar blues, which is a chord progression, which is just a series of chords that you play. And you start out with something like, I'll do the basic one, that's the basic, and that's an E. You play that 4 times. Then you go up to A, back to E, to B, back to A, and then back to E, and that's the 12-bar blues. That's a real basic progression. Do that all different ways. So instead of playing like those chords, those very common blues stuff, instead of playing that, you could do something like just a little riff where we go like. Up to D, back to A, up to E, D, A. And you can start adding in notes and just play around with that. That's the blues scale, and I'll get into that a little bit here in a second. But so kind of going back to the basics of the guitar, the layout. So here's the body. Here is the head. We call this the neck right here. This is the fretboard that sits on the neck. All of these individual little these are called frets right here, and you're fretting the string when actually you're pressing down. So I'd be fretting on what we call the E string, 2nd fret. There's 6 strings on the guitar. They're tuned in a certain, what we call standard tuning. There's lots of different tunings, but if you change one string tuning, then it changes all of your chord shapes, all of your scales. Everything has to be changed if you change the tuning of the guitar. So standard, that's what it sounds like. It doesn't really sound like anything. That's some sort of an E minor something chord, but so we have a standard tuning. It's E, A, D, G, B, and E. And the guitar is tuned in fifths. That's one, and so like if I hold this note on the 5th fret, it'd be the same as the A string. So right here, that's an A note. So that's the same note, go up again, same note. There's a little difference right here. It's 4 frets between these notes actually. So that's on the 4th fret, and you go back up to 5, and that's the standard tuning. Let's see. Here. So like power chords, yeah, going back to power chords. So it's some of the most basic stuff that you'll learn. I mean, it's like, smoke on the water, like, super easy. One of the first things people learn on guitar, along with something like, like Nirvana. So that's just power chords added, and you'll notice I'm doing a lot of like little extra rhythm stuff where you're kind of muting the strings. You're going. It's a little percussive thing. It has a little bit more rhythm, adds a little depth to it, and you'll see that very commonly used as well. Oh yeah, and we something you can just power chords. It's like. There's so many examples of those kind of things, like cocaine, Eric Clapton. There's a little bit more than just power chords, but it's based on power chords. You could play it if it's a power chord like this, but you're missing those little. It just gives it a little bit more color and depth. So the next thing people learn on guitar is what we call open chords. And now, whenever a string is open, that's when you're just hitting it, there's nothing fretted. So these are all open strings. And when we say an open chord, we're using chord shapes based on those open strings right here. So think of this as a bar. Think of this as, this is the nut right here. This is a bar. And so if you use this chord right here, this is an E major chord, one of the most basic chords. It's built off basically it's this. It's this shape. If I was barring all the frets with this finger, it would be the same thing, same shape as this. If you look, it goes down, down, and there's your E major. So we keep that shape, and that's actually an E-type bar chord. So we have E major, we move that up, we have G major, A, B, C, D, all the way up, It's the same shape, it doesn't change. Now if we go to the next string, this would be an A. It's a little bit different shape, it's just a bar across there with an open note. Same thing, if we move that up, same shape, this finger is going to bar, and then my pinky becomes that finger. So I just move it up, and that's the same chord shape right there. It's an E-type bar chord. And so continuing on with some of those. So so many songs are based off of these open chords. So you have like E, G, A, C, D, and you also have E minor, C major, B minor, A minor, D minor. Lots of variation there. And with some of those open chords, you can do things like adding in a couple of riffs as well. You can do things like a little lower than I want. Let's see So that's some open chords with some riffs mixed in there. And there's a difference between riffs and licks. A riff is more kind of like it's more of like a chord progression in note form, I guess, and a lick would just be like a real quick thing. So like, so those are just some kind of licks. I'll get into that in a minute. But going back to my clean sound, you know, we can do things like these are also so here's a real common one: D, C, and G. Those are 3 chords, and you've probably heard that a lot of songs are based on 3 chords, the same 3 chords. If you're in a G scale, that's the 1, the 4, and the 5. And if you do those chords, it all leads you back to the 1. Let me demonstrate. So like a good example of that would be another song that everybody learns when they first play guitar. It's
Roll Tide. Leonard.
Is that already 10 minutes? Wow.
Use a bonus coverage. Yeah.
Picture Neil Young after we can throw stuff out.
Yeah, exactly.
Leonard Skinner.
That's right.
Yeah, Leonard Skinner, one of my favorites.
Who hates Neil Young? That's the point.
Let me see, what else? So just like some riffs, you know, like. Day Tripper. You know, makes me want to do. You know, I think I'll screw up when I play that, but it makes me want to shake my head like Beatles. You know, another simple little riff walking down the scale, real simple, Sunshine of Your Love, Cream. That's just walking down a blues scale. The blues scale being it's just walking down there.
Private shuffles.
Then you got like, let's see, I messed around with this just so like a cool little example of this. So I'm playing on the, so these are the pickups right here. This is your neck pickup and your bridge. So the difference between these, Rick could explain this a lot better than I, but in simple terms, this makes it like very warm, very whole sounding. If you go to the bridge, it's high, treble. It's more treble and more highs. So to demonstrate that, you can do things like this surfer sound. You can get this real cool surfer sound like this. It's called Miserlou, Dick Dale, I believe. That's cool surfer sound. See what else. So mixing some riffs and some open chords. The one I like to do is this. I don't know if it sounds hard, but it's really not. It's kind of easy. It's just Led Zeppelin. Over the hills and far away. Guitar and sort of butchering it. It should be acoustic. I know. This is a capo. So what I do with the capo is instead of the nut being at 0, I can move this up and it frets all the strings for me. So it allows me to play things a lot higher. And I can pretend and play those same shaped chords, but in a different place and make it higher in a different key. So this would be like the key of A. And you know, the things you can do like that, you're playing the same patterns, the same chords, the same notes, the same riffs, you're just moving it up the fretboard. And you know, like an example would be like, the cool one I like to do is Norwegian Wood. of the Beatles as well. This one's a little tough. I'll play a little of this one. I'm still practicing, but it is one of my favorites, so I will play a little of it. Sorry about that. That one's a lot of picking, a lot going on that one. And I guess there's some other stuff I could play, but I don't know how much longer y'all want to go.
All school.
Very talented group.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah. And just to give you a little taste, so like a lick, like so. The most common thing people are going to do on a guitar, you'll hear somebody like play this scale. It's called a minor pentatonic scale. It's 5 notes going up to both string, all the strings. So what you'll see, and that gives us a lot of things like. So that'd be a lick. It's the same thing, repeating, but a lot of people do that. And so that's another example of a scale. When you're doing a scale, you can do things like a little pattern, like. And I could go on, but I won't keep y'all. That's already probably like 15 minutes. It goes by quick. Maybe I'll do part 2.
Again, pick and choose as you feel passionate for. The open for approval.
Whoever's next, no pressure.
Great job.
Yeah,
All
really.
right.
Can I go last?
That's awesome.
I'm supposed to be after Luke. Can I go last?
Okay.
I didn't mean to set an impossible bar.
Well, you did.